Pennings is here. Mr. Moore is here. Mr. Lassiter is here. Mr. Bates is here. Mr. Beaver is here. Ms. Powers is here, and Mr. Dudley is here. Everyone should have a copy of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda? All right. For Mr. Bates, do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Second for Mr. Lassiter. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. The agenda has been adopted. You should also have a copy of your minutes from the last meeting. Are there any additions or changes to those minutes? If there are none, do we have a motion to approve? Ms. Powers? Second from Mr. Moore. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? The minutes are approved. All right, we'll move on into our policies. It looks like our first policy is policy 1.602, notification of meetings. And I think this was a request from staff. So do y'all want to address that?
Sure. So basically, we've been talking about getting better with getting the agenda out for the board. Good gosh, jeez. It has, yeah. All the kids got home. We have been working on getting the board meeting agenda out quicker. But what we're noticing is when we have the facilities meeting at the third Thursday, it's getting to be tough for Stan to get action that's been voted on at the facilities meeting to get that information back in time in order to meet the board agenda. So what we want to do is we want to switch the community relations policy and facilities meeting so that he has 3 weeks to get stuff out versus 6 days or 5 days. So that's what we're looking to do. So we just want to switch those. And at the beginning of the year, you guys put the dates that we would have those meetings in policy. So we want to change the policy to change those meeting dates. Stan, do you have anything else?
Just in the short run, it would mean one meeting we'd have a shorter period of time, but once we make the change, it'd be the same difference each month between the meetings. And it's not approved till the board meets anyway, so it doesn't matter whether, really when the committee meets. It just, again, the fullness of those facility meetings, to have a little bit more time to get that ready for the board agenda would be helpful.
So you want the zoning meeting to be the first Monday of each month?
Mr. Moore?
And I don't know if this may bring up a larger discussion about some of this stuff, and I know we put these into place, and I appreciate the answer for why you are wanting to move it. Just some ideas I thought about there. I really would like us as a board to revisit the times as well as even possibly the days that we're having these meetings. Not to shortchange it again too much, but I mean, I can understand the switch, and I personally, as current chair, which obviously that may not continue, don't have a problem with that. But would it not make more sense to be a little more, maybe if all the meetings were on Thursdays? Is that stranger, or does that make it easier for both board members and the public to plan that we're consistently having Thursday night meetings for those? I would be interested in that. And the time, to be honest, I know we used to, I'm trying to remember back with the first year, was it 5 or 5:30 we met? 5. I would be open to some discussion from other board members as well on moving that up a little earlier.
I would prefer all the meetings on Thursday instead of like on Monday. As far as the times, we used to have the zoning and that always at 5 o'clock. Excuse me, we had a problem with people getting here. And I think that's why Mr. Bates moved them to 6 to start with. 5:30 or 6 is better for me. 5 o'clock will work. I'll go with whatever the will of the board is. But that's the problem. That's the reason we moved it from 5 until 6, because members had a problem getting here.
I'm flexible on the time of the meeting, but if I do recall, it seemed that 6 o'clock was better for more people to be able to attend. As far as all of the meetings being on Thursday, personally, I'm opposed. Just in sports seasons, it seems like if 3 between committee and 2 meetings, that would be 3 out of 4 Thursdays, and in sports seasons, that could mean missing 3 out of 4 games, which I would prefer not. Oftentimes, when there's a Monday meeting, it can kind of space out the ability to be at meetings and still fulfill parental obligations.
Well, I too, am not crazy about having everything on a Thursday because, if you were to have one special called meeting, you end up having a meeting every Thursday. And then, sometimes I have items that come up on Thursdays that I need to tend to. So I sort of like the arrangement we have now of having some on Monday and then some of the others on Thursday. Time-wise, yes, we met at 5 for many years, but then after the election of new board members, we had a larger number that said they could not get here at 5. I mean, I'm for whatever, but if we're going to say we're going to start at 5, we need to start at 5. We don't need to start at 5:30 because we've been waiting on people to show up. So just whatever time we do, let's be sure that we're prompt and have the meeting. If we can't be prompt, let's not call the meeting.
And I may not be here for the next session anyway, so it doesn't necessarily concern me as much, but I know personally Mondays are not a great day for me because Mondays are often the most hectic day of the week for us. I understand also not wanting to do Thursdays because it seems like when my son was in middle school, Thursday was ball game night that, we didn't go to any ball games to watch, even though he didn't participate because, we were busy with school board meetings. But, I would say, maybe you might want to consider it a Tuesday, something like that. And also, I don't know, without looking at a calendar, I don't know how much this is going to affect this schedule, but don't forget too that oftentimes Mondays are holidays. And, like I say, I don't know how many holidays are going to fall on the first Monday of the month, but just to be aware of that. And lastly, this may be something that you want to wait until your new board members are here, because one thing that was a problem before is at different times, we had multiple people that worked up towards Nashville and had to try to get here. So that was a problem. You may find that your new board members it may be much easier for them to make an early, maybe they need to make a later. Maybe Thursday is going to be bad for them, maybe, Tuesday, so I would suggest trying to plan something out, but, also make sure you get their input, because if they don't buy into this, then you're going to have issues down the line. Thank you.
If I recall correctly, anyway, when we made the changes before, I mean, we don't have to change the policy to just change the committee meetings around, do we? If we're making some temporary adjustments.
Right now, it's in writing in policy, so if we're gonna change that because of public notice, we have to change it in writing.
That's a good point. Do we need to have that in the policy?
For public notice, I think so.
The actual schedule? Is that what TSBA's recommended?
I don't think, I'll have to look at it and see. I know we do have to give so much notice. and
Sure.
so we have just done that with our committee meetings in the policy.
Because, I mean, I again, as we're talking about, and I appreciate everybody's input, I like that we're kind of like exploring this. I definitely, I'm just not sure. I understand the main meetings, and that makes a lot more sense, but if we don't have to have the committee meetings spelled out by specific dates in policy, and you can leave that up to the needs of the committee itself to make adjustments, obviously with enough time given as notice. I mean, that needs to be appropriate every time. But if there can be some room that doesn't have to be spelled out in policy, I think it would sure be nice to be able to just, when something like this comes up, we can just make that change without having to go through the process of of changing the policy itself. On the committee meeting side, now I do understand that there are some different requirements for the full board meetings. But I would be, if we could find that out, that would be a nice thing to not have to worry about this every time we want to make some adjustments.
Can we just put that on the website? Community or facilities policy Monday, second Thursday. Can we just put that on the website?
Posted, you could take it out of the policy and post it.
There you go.
I mean, sorry, but I mean, I think this gets to what Ms. Powers had mentioned about sporting events. I mean, there may come a time at a given month where we decide it may be best to make a week adjustment, or for example, when it comes to December. We're probably still going to have some things to do, but maybe want to take care of that meeting since it would have been scheduled to be potentially after school was out. We may want to move that up a week, and it would be nice if we could do that with some flexibility without having to worry about, are we going against what policy says?
We can keep the website updated and do that on the fly. That's easy to do.
We could just start at 10 o'clock on Saturday morning and one Saturday a month have a full-blown meeting all day.
I like the way you're going.
Under the title here of current board meeting schedule, it does say, please note the posted schedule could be subject to change. So if you need to change it, you can change it, but also let me kind of throw this out that, you know, it could be that maybe you've got a child that you took to the doctor or maybe you're going next week and they say, well, we need a follow-up appointment 3 or 4 months from now. If you have a set schedule that you're trying to follow, you may need to deviate, but if you're trying to follow, you can sit and mark your calendar for the whole next year and say, this is when we plan on having board meetings. So, you know, this Thursday may not work for having this doctor's visit because there's a board meeting, just like you would probably say that Thursday may not work because we have a ball game or whatever. I mean, I think that it will be more of a convenience for all of you if you know ahead of time when it's going to be.
TSBA says that we do not necessarily have to post it in policy. And when they made the changes to our recommended policies, they actually took that schedule out.
Do we have a motion?
I was just going to say, I think it's kind of two different things that we're looking at. You know, one is kind of the default schedule that's when we're regularly going to meet. And I think it is good for the public to know that with some consistency where they don't have to kind of guess at, are they meeting on Monday this week or next month they're meeting on Tuesday? So I think it's good to have a regular schedule. I guess I could see arguments both ways, whether it's necessary to put that in policy or not. By having it in policy, though, then from a public notice standpoint, it's hard for anybody to argue that they didn't get proper notice. Where these things can come into play is where a citizen says, you all had a meeting, you all deliberated, you all made a decision, and I wasn't given appropriate notice. And so they could technically go into court and try to void our action because of that. So by having it in policy, it's kind of like covers very well that everybody has adequate notice. Now, I guess you could say with the committees, maybe it doesn't make as much of a difference because it is a recommendation that comes out of the committee. And if somebody did raise that as an issue, as long as we had adequate notice for the full board meeting, that would probably resolve that particular issue. But I do think we do, in our current policy, we have the flexibility, whatever we want to set for our default, it's the default, but it clearly says the posted schedule could be subject to change. And so I think there's still that flexibility already built into our current policy where if the chair looks and sees that there's a conflict with a particular Monday or a particular Thursday, they can rearrange that. We're not locked into this. This is just kind of the default. So, but as far as the particular days, I mean, I guess I kind of like the tidiness of the every Thursday. If we had all of our committees and had all of our regular meetings on Thursdays. But as Ms. Powers pointed out, that's a good point with the sports schedule. There are a lot of games on Thursdays, and I missed quite a few games last year because of that. But it's one of those things that I guess at the end of the day, we're never going to figure out a perfect schedule. there's always going to be, whatever we do, there's going to be a conflict, like Mr. Lassiter pointed out, with Mondays, we have holidays quite a bit, and so that could create some issues. So I'm certainly flexible. I think Mr. Breeden's point, though, is a good point of if we have the facilities during the first week of the month, regardless of whether that's a Monday or Thursday, that gives them a little bit more time after that meeting to then get with Ms. Johnson to make sure that the action of the committee is accurately reflected in our board packet for the full board meeting. And that, I hope, will help us to become more efficient, that if everything is very well documented, exactly what the committee did, members can look at that in their board packet. It will help things run much more smoothly, and so that would probably give them a little bit more time to be able to do that.
Mr. Beaver, did you have your light on?
I was just going to say that as long as we keep it posted on the website, then we're meeting state requirements, right?
Yes, sir.
So my question is,
Yes.
what's most convenient for you, Stan? As far as Monday night, Thursday night, what would be the easiest, make your job the easiest?
It probably really doesn't matter as far as a night of the week to us, as far as just once we establish a routine. I think what Mr. Bates said is just about moving it back that week, because, you know, especially through the summer when our staff was off on Friday, we were leaving here on Thursday night trying to get this to Ms. Johnson by the end of the day on Monday, so she'd have time to get it ready and so that really put us in a crunch. And even if we're there on Friday, so just to have a week, anytime during that week, really, whatever's most convenient for you all. I mean, we'd prefer to stay with Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday night, obviously, if we could.
Right.
Because Friday night's not a good night. I think anybody wants. Wednesday night, some of us participate in church, so that's what we prefer.
Okay. All right. Thanks, sir.
Mr. Moore?
Would there be any interest in pulling the committee schedule out of here? I mean, we've talked about other things such as work sessions. We've talked about looking at different committee structures, bi-monthly things. It just means we're going to have to come back and do this again if we decide to make any of those changes. If it's not required by the state, I'd rather get that part out. And don't get me wrong, I still think we ought to have it. We can just as easily put it on our website in a very clear, same format, that's our procedure. That's what we're going to do, whatever we decide to do. I just would rather free that up and just get it out of the policy where we just don't have to revisit this if we did make it. And this is the third time, if I'm not mistaken, since we've been on the board, we've looked at this. I just, if we don't have to keep revisiting this, I'd rather not.
I would just say, if I pulled up what TSBA recommended, and it was 1.402, and everybody should have a copy of it. But it's very general, and I think it addressed one thing that Mr. Beaver had said, which is to have notice of, for the whole year, was their suggestion. So I think Shirley's already been working on our calendar for the next school year and when we would be meeting and whatnot. So I don't think there would be any problem with us publishing that, but it does give us the flexibility to make adjustments as needed under this particular policy that they suggested, because it doesn't lock us into, we have to come at this time on this date. And I'll be honest, I personally would like to see us somehow, some way get to where we have 3 meetings a month. I don't know how we do it, but 3 meetings in 2 hours for those meetings would be awesome. And I think that's kind of what a lot of us would really like. So the more efficient that we can get, obviously, if that makes Stan's job easier and the board meetings, if more efficient, I think we're all about that. But I think the long and short of it is we don't want to be meeting all the time. So however we get to that is fine with me. Mr. Bates?
Yeah, and I was going to mention one of the things, and I don't know if you all recall from the retreat that we discussed as far as our meeting schedule, and my thoughts were, once we got it more efficient at our meetings, to possibly go to a bi-monthly type schedule where we're rotating, like where maybe facilities is not meeting every month. It rotates on a bi-monthly basis with policy. Now, we've had so much on our plate lately to kind of work through. I didn't really think that we could even possibly do that. But that would be my long-term goal, is for us to maybe start rotating some of these committees so that, like you said, we're either down to 3, or what I was going to shoot for was maybe 2 meetings a month.
I like his idea better.
I'm good.
Now, what I was thinking is that would be kind of the regular schedule, 2 meetings per month. But there's going to be some months when there's going to be a third meeting thrown in, like where maybe some things would have to meet on a quarterly basis or something like that. So, I guess because of that, I guess Mr. Moore, I'm not really prepared to make wholesale changes right now. I see where you're going, and I like where you're going, and that's my overall goal. But I guess I'm just not ready to just totally revamp it until because we have the built-in flexibility right now. What I'd like us to see is to start doing some of these things on a trial basis and see how they work. What I don't want to do, though, is to create confusion amongst the public where they think, okay, so they're having a meeting on this night, and now they've changed it to this, and now they've changed it to that, and that creates a lot of confusion. I would almost rather leave the default rules kind of as they are, do things on a trial basis, and then once we kind of figure out what works best for us, then to adopt that as far as going forward, so.
Mr. Dudley?
Well, I think the Policy Committee and the Community Relations Committee, we can probably, might be able to consider doing every other month. But as far as the Zoning and Facilities Committee, I think with so much that we have going right now, until we get our facilities maintained a whole lot better than what they are now, that we're going to have to continue having monthly meetings, because there's so much that has to have board approval. We found that the board can't put it off on staff and say, you have the authority to do that. State law requires the board to take action on it. And so, I think that committee, till we get a lot better along in our maintenance program, we're going to have to continue meeting at least on a monthly basis.
Mr. Moore?
Okay, so 2 questions on this then. I know last year we made some changes without changing policy anyway. Is it not within our ability to, for the next few months, to go ahead and functionally make these changes, swap the dates? Because, to go with that, are we not also considering, or at some point going to get to the TSBA policy manual and review this anyway, so this will all change? I would, if it.
The biggest thing is notice. We've got to give the proper notice, so.
Which we should be doing anyway.
Right. Ever how we put it on the website or post it, as long as there's proper notice, that's the main thing. You
So
have
could
to
I
give
make a
proper
motion
notice.
to not change the policy, but yet to go ahead and functionally switch the two in both notice and how we're operating, switch these 2 committee meetings, swap them, whatever the wording for that is. Go ahead and do that until we decide to make another change, and then pending, obviously, we'll review the TSBA policy at that time. That's a motion.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second? I'll second that. All right. Mr. Lester, I'll let you go ahead and speak.
Okay, I just got confused then. So if you swap the dates, you're talking swap them in writing, correct?
No, essentially he's saying agree to what's been proposed, but
this
not
thing on here
actually
says-
formalize it in a new policy.
Subject to change, we are subjecting the change.
Okay, but not going with
We are not changing the policy.
Not, okay, all right.
Yet.
And, because what I was gonna say is, as far as me personally, right now, I'm gonna say that I have no opinion on this until after Thursday. After Thursday, I may or may not have an opinion. Thursday's election day. So, but, so, just so you know, I will probably abstain from this vote. Although if all we're gonna do is keep it, that's different, so.
We're just keeping it right now.
So, point of clarification, so whether you change the policy or whether you enact what you just recommended, none of this changes till October anyway.
Correct.
So. No, we can change it whenever we feel. Doesn't have to be voted on the board twice, though? to allow us to functionally change it?
From what I understand, the committee chair could at any time change the committee date as at will, if I'm not mistaken on that. So as committee chairs, we could just be agreeing to do that as committee chairs, starting next month.
Well, I'll just mention that next month, the first Monday is Labor Day, so if we could either
Then we can,
move it back to Tuesday
We can
or
move it to
roll it to
Tuesday.
the next Monday or whatever y'all want to do.
it's a
Shirley's
great time
already
to discuss
put
that.
out.
Let's, I would be, as my committee, be okay with putting it on that Tuesday, and we'll just go ahead and make sure notice goes out from there. If this were to pass, obviously.
Mr. Pennings?
I'm just thoroughly confused. So you want the zoning and facilities committee meeting to be the first
Monday.
Monday?
Where this meeting has been, we just flip-flop with this meeting.
But we're not changing policy.
Okay, why can't we just, well, I know we're not changing the policy, but when we get around to changing the policy, why can't we just have Community Relations and Policy Committee schedule as needed? It's not all the time we need a Community Relations meeting, it's not all the time we need a policy meeting, correct? I mean, why do we want to put in here that we're going to have it if sometimes we don't need it? Why isn't scheduled as needed okay?
On the website, we can create a table where the dates are listed in order, and if we need to take it off, we just remove it. That's something we can do. It's just simple as highlight and delete and upload.
Mr. Lester?
But now, if you go through and review the policies annually like we're supposed to do, you're going to have some long meetings. If you, either that or you're just going to have to say, yep, whatever's there, I agree with. But, because if you start doing every other month, you know, we don't make it through very well now. So if you start skipping months, we're going to be in a world of hurt. Well, you may all be in a world of hurt.
We spent 30 minutes on the first policy, and we have like 5 more to go. So we're not really setting a record-setting pace. And honestly, going forward, I don't know that policy is a meeting that it is really beneficial to have 11 eyes talking details on each one. Not that everybody shouldn't have input in it, but I think it's very difficult for us to talk about the nuances of the policy and get 11 varying opinions on it. So I don't know that policy isn't something that would be better in a work session or in a smaller committee, or, I mean, I'm just throwing that out there. Ms. Powers?
Can we, this word work session keeps coming up. I would really love to know what people mean by that, because I would love to see things in a different format to see if we could make better progress. When people say work session, can y'all tell me what, I mean, is this something we really could move towards, please?
No, actually, I was going to say we actually have a motion on the table. I wanted to wrap up the motion. I mean, the point of what I was making the motion was so that we could discuss this at a much later time when we can really dive into that part. I'm not trying to cut you off, but that was,
No,
I was
fair
trying to move
enough.
us through this part, because I think that really does take that would be a good discussion to have, but it's going to be a big discussion, like several hours discussion, I would guess.
Question before we vote. What are we actually voting on? I mean, excuse me, but what I understood you to say, we're going to vote, but we're not going to change anything. So why are we voting?
Miss Alexander. Yeah, I mean, just to clarify, because that does come, if as the
What-
chairs, we can make that call anyway, we don't need to vote on anything, is
What you're doing
saying.
is you're just changing procedurally what we're going to do for the next couple of months. There's no need to do anything to the policy. That's why it doesn't have to go to the full board vote. You really don't have to have a vote. We can change that as needed. We have a little clause that says that. So as long as we post it and give the necessary notice to the public, we can do it procedurally.
So I could withdraw my motion,
You can.
withdrawn.
sorry. Policy 1.606, school board records. And I think the change was
I'll take
just.
that.
Okay.
What happened, the Tennessee Public Records Act brought new legislation down in which we actually have to name who the coordinator is, which happens to be myself, as well as put in a few procedures. We've added those on the second page of this policy, and it's line 1 through 20. So we added the procedures we had to have in it, as well as naming the actual records custodian.
Motion to approve.
Mr. Dudley?
Has the director developed a procedure?
We have an entire public records procedure, as well as written documentation if someone requests a record.
Okay.
All right, if there's no further discussion, we've got a motion to approve the changes to policy 1.606. All those in favor, sorry.
Just
I
real
couldn't see
quick.
yours.
Yeah, I'm just jumping in. Ms. Hargrove, did some of this address, I know that there were some issues where you had some litigious individuals going around asking for like reams and reams of emails and things like that. Does this help address some of those issues?
They do. The Tennessee Records Council actually has, if it's unreasonable for us to fulfill a request, there's documentation we can send that we didn't just ignore their request, it was just unreasonable. So there's lots of forms that the state provides for those type issues. And then if you have a repetitive person that just keeps requesting and requesting, there's a procedure for that as well.
Okay, all right, thank you, sorry.
Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, we have a motion to approve the changes to policy 1.606. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That policy will be approved. We'll move on to our next policy, which is policy 6.204, attendance of non-resident students. I'll turn it over to you.
This was another change that come down from Public Chapter 882, and it basically authorized boards of education to admit students from outside their school system. They could set a time to do that. Previously, students were required to receive permission from the sending local ed agencies, wherever they were coming from, within 2 weeks from the start of school, but districts can still require that. However, they don't have to. There's no 2-week limitation. And so for lines 9, 10, and 11, we actually took that wording out so that that 2-week mandate, used to be mandate, is no longer.
Mr. Moore?
Motion to approve.
All right. We have a first, or a motion from Mr. Moore and a second from, I heard Mr. Pennings first. Any further discussion, Mr. Laster?
So just so I understand, then, someone can come in after the first week and still enroll? Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Mr. Beaver? I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. With Dr. Marzak giving the principals total authority over the schools, correct?
Autonomy, not total authority.
Well, okay,
But
all right,
autonomy.
All right, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
All right, and I guess line 4, it
Uh-huh.
says, the director, approved by the director.
Yes.
Would it be more apt for the principal to do it, since they should know more about what's going on in their schools, as far as overcrowded or whatever?
While the principals do have the authority to do that, I still believe that that authority needs to lie with the director of schools, especially moving forward. Not going to be here forever, and we don't want that, another director of schools to come up and go, wait a minute, why'd you give that to the principals? So that's common practice in the state of Tennessee, that the director of schools or superintendent has a final authority on it. So I would recommend leaving it in that manner as it is.
Okay. So how does this play in with the out of zone?
So they would still follow the same guidelines. If they're, if they don't have the they don't have the capacity, they can't accept a student. So it has no, they would treat them just like any other student.
And currently, principals tell parents, you know, you're going to be coming out of zone, you're going to be rolling your child. There is a chance that your child could be bumped. This is a gamble. And the parents are, that's okay, we'll take it, not a problem.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
So-
especially with the ones that are going to some of our Spring Hill schools that are out of zone. The parents have been informed that it could be February 4th, and I have to notify you that your child has to go back to their school of zone, and they accept it.
Okay. So the principals would have authority to make that decision, but this would be completely different.
Well, they check with us before they do it.
True.
Yeah,
I
so,
understand.
and basically, we give them, okay, go ahead and call the parents and let them know what you have to do. So we go ahead and do that anyway. It's just more verbal than in writing.
Well, the reason I was asking
Sure.
all this week I've had several calls of people wanting to put their kids in Caloca.
Yeah.
And, of course, Ms. Love, she's getting close to capacity. And she's been saying no. Of course, I've been getting phone calls. And I said, you know, hey, that's not my decision.
Yeah.
We don't have anything to do with that. You got to go talk to Ms. Love.
Yes.
Because that's her total decision, not
Yes.
mine. And so, you know, there's a lot of heartache and
Of course.
people
Of
fussing
course.
and cussing and carrying on, you know.
No, because one of the things we told the principals is we think a good buffer is when it gets close to 5% capacity, start denying out-of-zone enrollment, because they may make it a week, and then they've got to go back to their school of zone, which is not good for kids.
Right.
So,
Okay. All right. Thanks, sir.
Just to add to that, you know, we told principals they could put those people on a by-date waiting list, and, you know, if enrollment turned out that they could accept them, then they could always go back and say, hey, looks like we have some room. Would you like to consider still coming? So that kind of gives them, it's not the best thing in the world, but, you know, once you get to that 5%, you know, you start cutting people off. It could be one day, hey, you accepted somebody yesterday, but today I'm at that capacity, you know.
Mr. Lester?
I'm still having a problem with bullet 3 that says non-resident students must make application at least 2 weeks prior to the first day of school. So that doesn't,
Local education decision, we can decide that, how we want that time period to go. But what we don't have to do anymore is get those LEA records, the school system they come from. We don't have to do that within the time period of the 2 weeks prior to the beginning of the school system, or the school year.
but
Those records can come at any time.
if we have the choice as a school system to say, yes, you can come after that, should we not put that in here rather than say they must do it?
That's going to be,
Because, I mean, I don't,
Decision.
when I read this, I don't see a choice. When it says you must do it, you must make application at least 2 weeks prior to the first day of school. To me, there's no alternative there. So what would happen, I mean, I know that a lot of our non-resident students were teachers' children. So what happens if we pick up a new teacher after Christmas, after they're exempt from tuition? So if somebody, for whatever reason, comes, you know, if we're gonna say, yes, it's up to, you know, we can make exceptions, why don't we put that in here that says it's up to you or your designee to make exceptions?
I don't have a problem with that.
Mr. Lester, do you have a way that you would like it to be rephrased?
Not sure how I would, you know, real quickly, I was just thinking maybe somewhere after first day of school or at the director or their designee's discretion, not so.
How about this? Non-resident students must make application at least 2 weeks prior to the first day of the school. Oh, gosh, I just had the word inside my head. I don't want to say mitigating but special circumstances can be appealed to the superintendent. Does that sound okay?
Superintendent or director,
Superintendent.
which would be,
Me.
because everywhere else we refer to you as director.
Yeah, I know. We're in the process of changing that after, yeah, they voted on it.
I mean,
Yeah.
but,
I like superintendent. I don't have to explain it anymore.
so you will be having meetings every
Special circumstances can be appealed to the superintendent of schools.
Is that?
Does that sound okay? Okay.
Okay.
I have a suggestion. Could we just take that out? I mean, they're good, they have to make application, because we just say non-resident students must make application to Maury County Schools. Excuse me, and then list the other requirements.
Fine with me?
I guess I'm trying to figure out why that rule was in there to begin with, that we wanted students to apply at least 2 weeks before the beginning of school. And it kind of makes sense in some ways that, I mean, do you want a student, say they've enrolled in Lewis County, and then they're halfway through the school year and they just up and decide, well, I don't like this school anymore, I don't like that teacher, and then come to Maury County and ask us to take that child? Is this some way, maybe that's not really conducive to that child's education to change in the middle of an academic school year. And so maybe that's why the 2 weeks prior to the school year rule is in there, because maybe that's better for the education of the child, that they're going to, if they are going to transfer, it's going to be where they're there in the seat at the beginning of the school year, not this moving back and forth. So that's just I'm just wondering out loud if maybe having the rule at least encourages parents and students to, if you're going to make a dramatic change like that, try to do it in the most conducive way possible so that it's not disrupting the child's education, unless the director, what the director is suggesting, add in some language, unless he finds that there's some special circumstances in that particular case. It's not just, I don't like, I got all the way into October and I just don't like this school that I'm attending and I
How
want
about
to
this?
change.
Non-resident student must make application at least 2 weeks prior to starting the first day of school. So that means 2 weeks before they can start school, the parents have to make application that they want to, and then then they at least have a 2-week buffer. So maybe it gives them an opportunity to think, because we're not going to turn down BEP money. Because when that student comes, we get BEP money from the state and the parents pay the remainder in tuition. We're not going to turn that down. But at least gives 2 weeks before they can start school, before they begin. So it's not just a knee-jerk reaction. Because the parents may say, you know what, fine, we're going to Maury County Schools. They come over, they fill out the application and everything. They meet with the principal 2 days later, and everything's fine.
I think that helps with
It gives them a chance
somebody
to back
making a
up.
hasty rush decision,
Sure.
and it gives administrators time to adjust if they're going to be bringing a new child into the classroom. But I guess I go back to maybe the overarching policy behind why this language is there is maybe it's better academically for children to, if they are going to attend a school, to be there on August 1st rather
Oh, yeah,
than
of course.
try to transfer around winter break or something like that. And again, I'm not really advocating one way or the other for either viewpoint. I'm just trying to figure out why that was in there, and I'm just kind of thinking out loud. Maybe that was the policy behind that.
But I'd still like to leave in the wording about extreme circumstances can be appealed to the superintendent. Let's say, for example, a parent lives in Lewis County and they get a job at GM. And it's going to take them a while to put their house on the market, sell it, and they can't always get home to get their kid off the bus, but it's easier to bring them to Spring Hill or somewhere and to put their child in the school. When they get off shift, they can go pick them up and take them home. So that's an extreme circumstance where I think overriding the 2 weeks would be beneficial. So,
Go to Mr. Lassiter first, if you don't mind.
And I think that the strikeout sentence in there has a lot to do with it too, because, you know, otherwise, after the 2 weeks prior to the beginning of the school and thereafter during the remainder of the school year, students wishing to transfer into the system must also have the approval of the sending system. So if they were going to come after that 2 weeks, according to the old policy, then they would have to get approval from their old system. Is that?
and I'm thinking, I don't think we can put that in there. A system can't deny a child to leave the system, can they?
No, but I mean,
That's
that
why
would
that
have
was
given
stricken.
them a different option.
That language has to be stricken due to
Right,
Public
right.
Chapter 882. Now, prior to that, I'm not sure why that was, but the Public Chapter made that where we could not require that.
And it's not like we have a large population of students that come from another county. But most of them are teachers' students,
No,
correct?
no, we have a lot of students in Hampshire that are not Murray County students. Quite a few.
What's quite a few?
From what I've been told, we have quite a few students in Hampshire that are not Murray County students. What's that county that's close? They come from Lewis County.
But like 10 students, to me, that's not a lot of students.
We'd
Out
have
of
to get the-
12,000.
We'd have to get the exact number, but I hear there's quite a few from Miss Kathy,
Because there's what, 300, how many students in Hampshire?
350.
And
I'd go on a guess and say maybe 10%, 30, 40 kids are not Murray County students.
and not teacher students,
No,
or faculty, I should say.
no, I'm working with a parent right now that's trying to get her child, tried to get her child in the third grade last year, is now trying to get her child in the fourth grade this year. But the numbers were at capacity, and the only way is to add another teacher. And so, yeah, that's one case.
You know, my main concern is I just don't want to lock people into, oh, well, you didn't get to do it during the first 2 weeks, so sorry. Yeah, there's room, but we're not going to let you in.
And that's why I'm comfortable with putting at least 2 weeks prior to starting their first day of school. Extreme circumstances can be appealed to the superintendent of schools. Mr. Moore disagrees.
If you do the 2 weeks prior, you're going to run into a thing where this is for the child's sake. If they leave the school system they're in, I don't want a child sitting at home for 2 weeks before they have to come here if they're making a change. That seems like a horrible thing for the kid. But to get more to the point, I made the motion. I think I can amend my own motion, right?
Special circumstances can be appealed to the director,
Would
superintendent of
be
schools.
at the discretion of the superintendent.
After that
After the-
first sentence of
After the first
line
sentence, that's
3.
what I was adding.
Yes.
I'm amending my motion to put that in there. That special circumstances, exceptions, whatever wording comes up, would be at the discretion of the superintendent. That would be my amended motion. Yeah, yes, and to go to Mr. Bates' point on that, I think he's exactly right. I think it's good to have that standard in there that they should try to give us as much advance notice before the school year starts so that we can plan for that. However, obviously, if you want to make an exception to that, that would be your call.
And it would be starting their first day of school, not starting the first day of school, starting their first day of school. Starting the first day of school?
Again, I don't want a gap of the student not being at school for 2 weeks.
Cool.
I want it to leave the first sentence as it is. Okay, the first sentence of line 9 stays the same. After that, we're adding another sentence that says special exception would be at the discretion of the superintendent.
Are you agreeable to that, Mr. Pennings? You had the, okay. Does everyone understand the motion? Hearing nothing further, we're going to go ahead and vote on this. The change is to strike the portion that was stricken based on the public chapter 9 through 11. 3 will now read, non-resident students must make application at least 2 weeks prior to the first day of school. Special circumstances can be appealed to the superintendent. All those in favor of that change, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes. All right, our next policy is policy 6.415, and it is a student suicide prevention policy, and I think this was now required by law. Turn it over.
It is. Legislation was passed this year. Every staff member of a public school system has to have not only the training, but we also have to have a policy about the procedure and the training, and that's what this policy is.
Mr. Moore.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Moore, second. Second? Okay. Second from Mr. Bates. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This policy is passed. All right, we'll move on to policy 6.304, and I'll turn that over to Ms. Alexander.
You actually had two policies, one that was the TSBA model policy, and also the current policy that we have for student concerns, complaints, and grievances. You're going to see they're quite different. There was new law passed. You will see the highlighted information on the TSBA policy. That is basically 48-hour notice. There's different procedures we have to do when it comes to bullying and complaints by students. And I'm proposing that we adopt what the TSBA policy has. It's a little more thorough than what our policy stated.
Mr. Moore.
I make a motion to adopt the TSBA policy.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Beaver? Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The new TSBA policy will pass. That will lead us to policy 4.903, religion in the curriculum.
And again, this was just new legislation passed down in which they wanted the specific verbiage that we added to this policy on number 2 in lines 8, 9, and 10. And also, they wanted to strike demean any religious beliefs.
Mr. Lester?
On line 10, after tenants, that's where it's going to stop, correct? So we
Yes.
can strike the word or as well.
Yes.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion to approve those changes as Mr. Moore has made a motion? Do we have a second? Second from Mr. Pennings. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This motion passes. That will lead us to policy 2.805, purchasing, and I imagine that one goes to Stan.
There's one addition on 2.805 that Mr. Breeden had sent me. I did not get in your original policy. On the second page, line 23, he has requested that we strike NJPA and replace that with approved purchasing cooperative. Page 2. Replacing it says approved purchasing cooperative. We're actually striking NJPA and agreement.
And if I may speak to those, Madam Chairman.
Yes, please.
Just both, I'll speak to first the cooperative. We have several approved cooperatives that we use, and so it's just not been updated as those have been approved. So we looked at TCA and felt like it gave us leeway to do different ones, and so by just putting this, it would give you the right to, obviously, we can't use one unless you approve it, but that's what we do, so we've done that. So we want to make that change. On the first part, we feel like, and this is something Mr. Gaines and I have talked about, also Dr. Marzak, with our new structure and with the flexibility of our new accounting software, being able to separate that by allowing Mr. Gaines and me both to serve as purchasing agents. He can focus on the purchasing that happens on the instructional side of things, and what I'll do is the other part. So that way, his office will actually go through the bid process, quote process, and handle that. They're much more equipped. As you know, when I bring those to you, we're asking them to explain those anyway. They're much more equipped to do that. It will give him the authority then, because it is named in policy, who has the authority to serve as purchasing agent. And that we would just be sharing that responsibility. There's one other minor change in there about raising the limit from 2,000 to 2,500. We polled several different other school districts that we constantly are having questions from people on our staff. Hey, you know, things are getting more and more expensive. $2,000 is not a lot of money. We polled several other school districts, and 2,500 was kind of the most popular. Actually, statute allows us to do it up to 10,000. That's the limit, but it's set on a local level. that amount. So 2,500 is what most other school districts were doing. So that's why we recommended that.
Mr. Moore?
Motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Pennings? Is there any discussion on the suggested changes? Seeing none, we will vote. All those in favor, say aye. Any opposed, say nay. All right, this motion passed, or that policy passes. The next one will be policy 2.806, bids and quotations.
That's just changing that 2,000 to 2,500 because it was listed there as well.
Motion for Mr. Moore. Do we have a second? Is that Mr. Dudley? Did you do the second, Mr. Dudley? Oh, okay, Mr. Beaver, okay. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed? This policy is approved. All right, we'll now go into a couple of items that had come up for discussion in one of our previous meetings, and so we just added them to this policy. The first one is a policy with regards to consumables. We had talked about that when the discussion came up where we had to approve at the last board meeting, the list of consumables for the schools as well as the parking fees. And somebody said that they wanted to have that discussed.
Am I a somebody?
Maybe.
I thought we were going to be brought back some information on a consolidated pricing and an application of that.
To the board meeting, as an FYI, item for information.
Okay.
We said we'd bring it back to the August board meeting.
Okay. So you've got that under control?
Beverly Miller's working on it.
Okay. Because I think we came into it this year, just an example that was brought up at Spring Hill High School this year. Last year, parking was the parking sticker was $10. This year, it's $20. And I have no reason, I don't understand why it would magically change numbers from year to year. And also, just so I'm clear on that too, the schools aren't using that money to repave their parking lots or restripe them, are they? That's something we've been traditionally paying for.
There have been some schools have actually done the restriping themselves. Some of them also want their parking lots numbered, and we have not been paying for the numbering. So if they're charging that fee, it would be reasonable to expect them to do some of that. The paving we've done, it's been, quite frankly, over the last several years, because we haven't had a lot of capital funds, it's been hit or miss. For instance, 3 years ago, I think, Spring Hill High School paid to reseal and restripe their own parking lot out to the side because we didn't have any funds available. But where we can, we're trying to do that.
But to be clear, even at a $10 parking rate, assuming a couple of dollars that went to the sticker, there's no way on earth they could, over the next 20 years, pay to redo a parking lot. There's not enough fees that they could ever.
Not
So
to repaving.
those
no,
fees
sir.
may have come from the school. They didn't come from the parking fee, is what I'm clear. And I guess that's where I understand you're putting it together, Mr. Superintendent. I would just hope that we get to a point where we're not, these random numbers are not out there. They're actually being applied. And to be honest, that's kind of an area I wouldn't mind as a board that we actually addressed, is to make sure that when these things come up, and if it needs to be in policy, it needs to be, that these numbers are real. They're actually going towards what they need to be. If there's a parking sticker cost, it should only go to that. I don't see any reason why we should have little fees, gotcha fees that are kind of thrown here and there, and they're different from, I know you said they're going to unify them between the schools, but I also want some transparency for what's a parent is or a student is getting when they pay these fees. Because again, I've heard from many people, teachers, staff, that for years they've been told the parking fees are to repave the parking lots. And it just needs to be some clarity that what they're really paying for is maybe some stickers that go on their window. That's going to be part of the fee, and maybe some other things. But we need to be clear what the parent should understand. As a parent myself, I want to know when I pay a fee that what I'm actually getting for that fee, not a kind of a ghost answer.
Well, and I'll just say that this wasn't this year, but the previous year, we actually learned that some of the fees were used to pay for awards for the schools. I know that was specifically mentioned for the parking fees. And I don't see why anybody that's paying necessarily needs to be paying for honors awards I understand that each school needs to have some money set aside for that, but it just doesn't seem like that is what everybody wants to pay their parking fee for, so. And then I'm curious too on the consumables, what exactly are we getting for our $25 and how many people are paying it? And if we're just putting it out there, nobody's really pushing it, do we need to do away with the consumable fee? I know I'll probably get a letter saying I owe $25, but I'd really like to know what that $25 goes to because, we also send out a list of what supplies we need to buy. So if we need to add $25 more supplies, and let's add $25 more supplies, I think. Mr. Dudley?
Thank you. I too agree that the parents should be able, and the students should be able to ask a question about any one of the fees they're paying and know exactly what is being done with it. I think the parking lot fees and the consumable has been a catch-all for the administrations to use it for whatever they wanted to spend on. I think it need to be exactly known, parking, we're issuing parking lot hang tags, and that's what you're getting for your parking fee. As far as the striping and the repaving and all that, our students shouldn't be paying for that. That needs to be coming from school, normal repairs. I think we need to do away with that. Like I say, there's no way that the little fee is going to cover it anyway. So as far as we need to be consistent. As far as the numbering, I don't know what benefit that is to a school or not, but I think we need to have consistent maintenance of our parking lots system-wide. I think our fee structure needs to be consistent system-wide as much as we can. I realize that one school may have a book that another one doesn't use, but we need to be as consistent as we can with everything. And so that's my opinion. Like I say, as far as parking fees, it needs to be just cover the cost of the hang tag. But that needs to be consistent priced across the board. If Spring Hill's going to charge $5 for the hang tag, the students at Mount Pleasant or Cullioca should be charged the same $5.
And that's where the collaboration piece comes in. Principals getting together, discussing the fee structure, and then deploying the fee structure, just like we did with dress code. So, agreed.
Mr. Laster?
I'm excited to hear these conversations because this is something that's bothered me for a long time. So I think you guys are headed in a great direction, and hopefully you'll get a lot of this worked out. I do know that for a number of years now, for example, Spring Hill High, one of the things that we've been told is that, yes, that money goes towards awards and whatnot. Now, just a real quick history lesson, there was a time, Spring Hill High, during this meeting when they presented the fees, Richard Callahan from Spring Hill High had 0 fees for parking. And a board member on this board that was higher than District 7 and lower than District 11 said, we will have parking fees at every school. We will. And they said some people wanted them $20 at all the schools. They said if kids can drive to school, then they need to pay $20. So that's where it wasn't the schools that jumped on board with all the parking fees. And some did, some didn't. So yes, I hope that you all get that worked out. And I agree that, I didn't agree with that, and I don't agree with $10 for a locker fee either. I think that is crazy. So something else that when your kids hit middle school or high school, you will become familiar with.
Mr. Moore?
Speaking of locker fees, why are we charging students? I understand if you've got to charge for a lock that's on there or redoing a lock, but when we have kids that are choosing not to get a locker at all because there's a fee, that's crazy, to be blunt. Because we're having to carry around these. Have you already addressed this? I would hope so. I think we need to, because again, why we would have students having, number one, having to carry around all these books, which are, they're tearing them up because they're carrying them around. It's also not good to be carrying around 80 pounds worth of books everywhere you go. But I just don't understand. I understand some reasonable fees, and this gets back to the whole concept. I understand you're going to post it as an FYI, but I would also encourage, as they collaborate these things, to not just collaborate on an average price for parking, but to actually collaborate on at what these fees really should be, on what the costs are, and bring that to us.
Mr. Pennings?
Well, I agree with Mr. Moore. I think charging a locker fee is, well, my words I use is ridiculous. I mean, you're telling the child they can't wear this and they can't wear that in school as far as a jacket or whatever, and they have so many books to carry around. I realize my day in high school was a long time ago, but if you wanted a lock on your locker, you brought yourself a combination lock or a key lock, and that was your lock.
Mr. Breeden, refresh my memory. Like, for example, in the new Central High School, there's not enough lockers for every single child at school, correct?
That is correct. There's not. There's only 400. And that, again, came about during the design and the input from administration that students just don't use lockers much anymore.
Probably because they're being charged $20.
So that's, what I'm thinking is the locker fee is whoever wants the locker, first come, first served. When 400 kids pay for a locker, then there are no more lockers. So we're paying, and we're like, okay, pay for a locker, not a problem. Rock and roll.
I think the children ought to be able to ask for a locker if they want a locker, and if we don't have enough lockers after so many kids do, then we put in more lockers. Every child should be able to have a locker if they want a locker. I mean, we had up until recently here, you couldn't carry your cell phone. If you didn't have a locker, what are you supposed to do with your cell phone? I know, we couldn't take it to school. Every teacher knew it was in school. Every single teacher knew it was in school. And as far as the parking fees, striping is very important, according to Mr. White at Central High School, because children are assigned a parking spot, which keeps them from fighting over parking spots, and I can truly understand that. What I would like to see, if a school takes in $4,000 for parking fees for that year, I don't like to micromanage, but I want to be able to tell my constituents when they ask me, this is what that money went for. In other words, I would like a list of, okay, this is what that money went for, and not, well, we did some for this and some for that. I want amounts. So that if it was $5,000 in fees coming in, I want to be able to see $5,000 in money going out. And like I say, to me, that's not micromanaging, that's being able to tell the constituents what they want to hear.
Transparency.
And I'm trying to find the number, I'll find it in a few minutes. At Central High School, for instance, the specifications that were written for paving the parking lot did not include numbering the spots. Mr. White has asked that we get that price as a possible option, and it's several $1,000s that if we number the spots. And in the most recent things that we've done, we have not painted numbers on the as we've repaved parking spots, we've not painted numbers. You got to stencil 3 numbers on 600 parking spots will be $14,800 is how much that would cost. So again, we've got, and I know the schools, it works better if they can do that, but somebody's got to pay for that. So.
I understand that. It seems like a good project for an art class, but but I would just like, and I understand where Mr. White's coming from, where all the principals are in the schools are coming from. If they're numbered and marked and the student is assigned that, it saves a lot of harassment, a lot of trouble, probably stops a lot of fights because, okay, you've got your assigned parking spot. I understand that. And if we have to pay for that, then I think we just have to pay for that because it solves problems instead of creating problems. But as far as our fees go, I'd like to see our fees get more equal in every school. And like I say, I would like us to be able to be accounted for. If you get 5,000 in, I want to see where the 5,000 went out. Thank you.
Mr. Lassiter, did you? Okay. All right, does anyone have anything else regarding the consumables fee and parking fees? We'll go on to our next item, which was with regards to cell phones for school administrators, and that came up at the same meeting, so I guess you probably have this covered as well. No. Do you have a preference, Director?
Procedure.
Procedure? Okay.
What procedure are we putting into place?
We have to, I think we had a meeting where we just got notice of what schools wanted cell phones, and we had to prove it as part of our board packet, and I don't know if we even really want to be in charge of that. I mean, I think that may be something that we may want the superintendent to be in charge of going forward and figure out the procedure for that.
Yeah, there was a while ago, principals would carry two phones, a personal phone and a district cell phone. New law has since come out saying that if you take at least one school-related phone call on your personal cell, that can now be submitted as evidence in a court case. So there's really no reason to have a personal cell or work cell. You might as well just have a work cell, because one phone call from anybody related to work, and it's now admissible. So we might as well just have a work cell phone.
Sounds good. Any other discussion on that, Ms. Powers?
I just have a question about that. I know at our office, family plans, we had to quit doing it because with data and this and that,
Yeah.
it was going
We-
over, so how do you capture
We
that?
have unlimited data and unlimited
Unlimited
minutes
data.
because we're a corporate nonprofit entity.
Yeah, and the educational rate we get, yeah, it's unlimited data, unlimited text, unlimited minutes.
Oh, nice.
I know.
I might be an administrator.
For $49 a month, which is a really, that's before the supplement.
Yeah, private versus nonprofit, yeah.
All right. Do we have?
We don't get medical money.
Motion, all right. All those in favor, say aye. All right, we're adjourned.
Take a 5-minute break and then start community relations. 10 minutes?
Next month, I'd be fine reducing committees smaller. My only thing is, what I'm worried about is like, especially like what they're talking about, if we had the facilities at the very beginning of the month, and then you had the board meeting at the end of the month,
Right.
you could potentially, well, one, I guess with a smaller committee, I think, one of my concerns is like we were at the beginning, we kind of felt left out.
Right.
in decision making.
Right.
It's probably okay, as long as, the chair is not trying to abuse the authority, that sort of thing, it's probably okay. But that's, I guess it's a policy thing we gotta think through.
Yeah.
Do we want to kind of, it may be fine with us, but do we want to set up the next generation where they get a horrible
Right.
chair, and that chair can basically,
Sink hitters.
they could sink it to the committee. And that's what happens on a large scale. Like
Right.
if you go to the General Assembly, if you go to
I think
Washington,
years back it was
that's how
superintendent here. I don't know
that's how
when it got
business
changed
is
to
done.
director.
Right.
They kill or whatever through the committee system, so.
But we can
But-
still bring things up through, I mean, somebody could still put that on the regular board meeting. I mean, it would just have to have a second. My whole thing with doing this revision of the TSBA policy, I mean, if we're gonna go through hundreds of policies, I think we just need people like to, to have submit your, submit proposed changes on this instead of like us trying to like, battle it out here, so to speak.
Well, another possibility would be like with the TSBA.
So you were special and now you want to be
I
like.
think that would be very helpful if we would do that.
You know,
Yeah.
kind of divide and conquer.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, with all those things, is everybody willing to respect
Yes, you are. I know. No, you're charging.
Peers say.
co-members do?
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, if we have like a subcommittee, we break it up, okay, you do this, you do that. And then that subcommittee goes through it, and they spend all the time, and say, okay, this is what we're gonna change, this is what we're gonna leave. And then it comes back to the general committee or to the board, and then everybody just rehashes everything. We just wasted a bunch of time.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's the other kind of the balancing act, I guess, on all this is probably never an ideal.
I just know that to get through I think we need to get going on the TSBA recommendations.
Yeah, I agree.
Because, we agreed to do it for like, a period of
Until I
time.
get
And
mine.
so we better like get on board with it because we've had them for a couple of months, but it's just not been, really a good time to bring all that stuff
Okay, thank y'all for your patience with my oversight. We'll call the meeting to order at 7:30. Welcome to everyone. I have made mention of roll call. Ms. Parker, Mr. Pennings, Mr. Moore, Mr. Lester, Mr. Bates, Mr. Beaver, myself, and Tommy Dudley are in attendance. I hope everyone's looked over the agenda. May I have a motion to approve? Thank you. Mr. Dudley and Mr. Moore. Last time I did not have the minutes from the previous meeting, so this meeting, there are 2 minutes to approve, March 7th and then June 6th. I'll give y'all a minute since I just hand them to you all to glance over them.
Make a motion to approve the March the 7th and the June the 6th minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Dudley. Have a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Beaver for both?
Yeah.
Thank you. I don't think I think we got the approvals adopting the adoption of the agenda. All those in favor say aye. Okay, any opposed? Okay, and then if we'll just approve both committee minutes together. Everyone in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? Excellent. Okay, moving into other business, we are going to discuss the social gathering for the school board and the county commissioners. So with all the formalness of the committee meeting totally put aside, can we kind of huddle up and discuss this? I have passed around the invite, and special thanks to Kim, who has been a tremendous help to me in this. So Kim prepared an invite that I have put in y'all's hands. It will be emailed to Sonny for him to distribute via email, and then I plan to print them and put them at the desk of all of the commissioners for their next meeting. But Sonny did announce it at his a previous meeting too, so they are aware of the date. I'm trying to ask as little of everyone as possible, but please keep in mind we have a budget of 0. So that makes event planning a bit of a challenge. So what I need from y'all right now is input, and here's what I have put together. We've got the invitation. I would love it if y'all would reach out to your commissioners that are in your district. Remind them of this event, let them know that they are invited. We would love for them to come. We would also love to get some more SVPs. And I hope that everyone on our school board, when I have sent out emails, I have had like 3 and 4 responses, but I would really like to think that everyone's going to participate. This is meant to be community building and an act of goodwill. I think we're all celebrating our budget being approved, and this could just be a time of celebration and hopefully community building moving forward. Mr. Beaver has been so kind. He is making, did we decide 5 or 6? 5 cornhole sets. He is making them, and a member of our community, Eric Ivy, has offered to donate his time to paint them. So I think they're going to look really nice. We're working on getting some beanbags made. Beanbags are a lot more expensive than you might think. So we're working on that. A neighbor of mine, I was out for a walk, and he is always playing cornhole, and I started talking, and he and his family like compete like nationally for cornhole. And he said he would love to come and organize a tournament. So I think if anyone's opposed, I need your feedback now. This is our last time to get together. But, a community member is willing to donate their time and come and kind of organize this and run it. I think it sounds fun. So please speak now or be prepared to play cornhole.
I think it's a great idea.
Okay. Well, the paint. Oh, gosh. Which part?
Multicolored, different colors.
Yes. Well, along with our budget of 0, Eric Ivy has some leftover paint that he is willing to let us use, and he has one of those booths, so it'll look really nice. But the colors are multicolored. I think we were in a perfect world, we would have done school colors, for different schools, but, you know, unless somebody has some paint they want to donate, we're just gonna do kind of multicolors. But the thought has been to sell them at the end of the event and give the money to the schools. So, anything you want to add about that?
I think, the color's gonna be the colors of the rainbow. And, I think Mr. Ivy's got a booth. I'm gonna go up and help him and turn them and all this as he paints them, you know. So I think it'll look real good.
Thank you for putting your time towards that. Wayne has reserved the Kiwanis Pavilion. He has tables at the Baker's Building, and he said he will get his, you know, the people who help him to get those there. Barbecue is being provided by Murray Alliance, so that is a huge gift to us. I plan to provide the plates, napkins, forks, knives, tablecloths, as well as hopefully some flowers to make it look nice. The thing that I also need from you all is people are bringing a dish. I hope y'all will bring a dish, and I hope the county commissioners will bring a dish. But there's nothing we haven't planned anything for drinks. It is going to be hot, mid-August. It's at 6 o'clock, which should be good, but we're still going to need a ton of water. If y'all could bring coolers with like an iced case of water, and the schools have been very generous with their ice to me usually. So if I need to pick up a cooler from y'all and go put ice in it, I can help and do that. But, you know, we just need coolers and with, I assume, water, and just keep it simple. The other thing that is music. I think that's always nice at an event, but I think if somebody else wants to pick that up, great. Otherwise, we'll just enjoy, you know, the crickets and the birds. Does anybody have any thoughts? Bobby Bush entertained bringing his band. He just can't get them rallied at this short of notice. But, you know, or maybe any thoughts on music or anything else, please, I need feedback. You know, like I said, I am very happy to get most of this organized, but, you know, I want to know that y'all are all in.
But chairs, lawn chairs and stuff, I guess we need to bring comfortable chairs.
There are picnic tables out there, but if you want a comfortable chair, you know, I will suggest that Sunny tell people. I mean, most people know Murray County Park, and it is open to, you know, spouses, friends, kids, whoever people want to bring. So I hope we'll have a good crowd, but we're right there by Kids Kingdom, and I think the kids will have a big time too. So.
Did you say that we're gonna sell the cornhole, afterwards?
Yeah.
I wonder if the commission would want to get into a little friendly wager in this tournament, and if there was like a $5 entry fee or something like that, and whoever wins would donate to a charity of the other one's choice. Like, we may want to do
Great.
Stuff the Bus or something like that. Now, I don't know, I'm just throwing that out.
No, I love the idea. So things to kind of add in as I send this to the county commissioners would be to bring, you know, chairs, and then suggest an entry fee to the cornhole. Great.
The other thing
Love
I thought
it.
was maybe a wager with Sonny, you know, chair to chair, and then if we lose, I'd probably send in David Moore to sing in front of the commission or something like that.
Shave your head. I vote on shave your head.
What?
I vote that the chairperson has to shave their head.
No, that's.
Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? I have a second on Mr. Bennings. All in favor, say aye.
Okay, so are you going to reach out to Sunny for that?
No way.
Not the shaved head, for y'all to have a friendly.
Wager?
Yes.
Yeah, we may try to figure something out.
Okay. Cricket. Okay, so will you be the dunking booth committee for? Can you set that up?
I was just gonna be in it.
Oh, okay.
Dunking booth, $3 for 3 balls, dunk to superintendent.
I'll go for that.
All right, he's okay. This is just getting better by the minute.
The only thing is a dunking booth. I don't know what one of those would set you back, if, you know, you would come out.
I will explore it, and if it makes sense, I will do it. If you're serious about getting in it, but really, I think you're joking, right? Okay, we will explore that. We will explore that.
with ice water.
Okay. Yeah, yeah,
Hey, it'd feel good that time of day.
Hold on, don't get ahead of ourselves. Hold on.
yeah. I welcome any feedback. If something crosses your mind later, please email me. But please, I would love it if y'all would reach out to the commissioners from your district and, talk this up. I hope this is a united group, reaching out to the county commissioners. Okay. What'd you say?
Where do you get a dunking booth in this town?
DJ's Rentals has, the thing about them is if you book it and then, if there's a tornado that comes through, you don't get anything back and they're not cheap. So if I can avoid supporting that business, it's just not very user-friendly. But if we can find someone who wants to sponsor a dunking booth for the event, I will. But with our budget of $0, I don't know how we're gonna pay for that. Okay, all right, well, thanks y'all for your time and support. Like, is everybody in? I just need to clarify that everyone's in on this.
I'm mostly in.
Okay, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Are we still doing the restaurant deal where they donate money to the library for certain days?
I guess that does fall under community relations, and I will get on that. It has not been on my radar thus far. Kristen, can I ask you how that went last year? Because I know I was calling restaurants begging for checks that people were,
I know it's individually the schools do it. Like, there's Burger King nights. That's the receipts.
We did it as a community relations thing, and one night was dying out for education. Oh, wow. Split the money between all the schools.
if I take my family to O'Charlie's, or I think Legends, I know participated, to feed my family at Legends, I'm gonna spend $50, the school got $5. I would much rather write a check to the school.
Can we partner with Murray Alliance on that and get them to help us do the legwork? Most all those businesses belong to the chamber anyway.
But tell me, like, how do you see that as a value to the family? That's, I mean,
Well,
how much
benefits
peace?
the community, and then we're also getting some of that tax money too.
Okay, I will reach out to the county commission and report back to you all, and we will see, I'm sorry, I said the commission, to the alliance. And, Will is great to work with. He has great ideas. So if it's not exactly what's been done in the past, maybe we can come up with some way for the schools to benefit the community in return. So I will talk to Will. Yes, Mr. Penn.
The Lions might have an idea who will donate us a dunking booth.
Exactly. That's a great idea. I wonder if DJ Reynolds is part of the alliance.
I think it should be the superintendent and the chairman of the school board.
That was an awesome, interesting laugh.
Okay, good deal. Well, y'all, thank you for your time and for your support of this event. As it gets closer, if I do see some things that I have not identified as needs, I may be reaching out to you all. Motion to adjourn? Mr. Moore and Mr. Beaver. What's this for? Are you sure?